Hello there, it's Laura Davalo here with a fun and easy interactive double slider Halloween card. As you can see, when we pull on the slider panel, two cute ghosts appear from behind the tombstones. Although I love my double slider loop slots dynamics, today I'm not going to use any specific interactive dies. Let's start with some easy ink blending. You're going to need two panels that measure 4.5 by 6 inches. I'm using the new Rolling Cloud stencil and two tones of Distress Oxide inks, Seedless Preserves and Victorian Velvet on the first panel. Actually, my brush had some blue in it from a previous project, so let's say I'm using 3 tones of ink. This stencil has more pronounced dips than the other Cloud Edges stencils, and I really like the dramatic look that you can achieve with it. To get rid of that bright white, I'm going to add a little more color without the stencil. I'm just rotating my panel to get an even layer all over. I'm also going to add some color to the edges of my secondary panel, in case you can see it from the sides when looking closely at the finished card. And while we're at it, I'm going to ink blend our ghost strips. I stamped these two cuties from the Ghostly Greeting set with Extreme Black Hybrid ink on some Copic friendly cardstock. I also stamped them on masking paper and created a couple of masks for them, which I'm now adhering. After fussy cutting them, they're going to be about 3 inches tall. These inks are new and really juicy, so the blending turned out a little bit darker than I wanted, but we'll roll with it. Next, I'm going to splatter some water and some diluted ink on everything for that nice texture that we all love. While the main panel is drying, we can move on to the secondary panel. We need to cut a couple of pieces of it to create a groove or a channel for our cellophane strip. I'm drawing some marks at 1/4 inch from all of the edges. Then, to draw the lines, instead of using the T-ruler, I prefer to use a square and a bevel. That way I know they're going to be perfectly straight. First, I'm going to use my scissors for these short vertical cuts on both edges, and then I'm grabbing a craft knife and a metallic ruler for the longer horizontal cuts in between. My cellophane strip measures more or less 3 7/8 of an inch by 11 5/8. I've already adhered a strip of 1/4 inch score tape to one edge, and now we just wrap the strip around our panel, get rid of the release paper and adhere it. I like it quite tight, but you might prefer a looser fit. Our black slider panel, which you haven't seen yet, will be adhered to the cellophane on the back of the panel and our little ghost to the cellophane on the front. We can use the scissors to trim that overlapping piece. Now we're going to need thin strips of foam tape. My Scotch tape is 2 centimeters or 13/16 of an inch wide, so I'm going to divide it in 4. I'm adhering 2 strips to the front and trimming those extra pieces with my scissors, and another 2 to the back. I don't know if you can hear the rain in the background. I live on the northwestern coast of Spain, and the summer has been really hot so far, but today it started pouring some much needed rain. Okay, now we can return to our ghosts, peel off those masks and fussy cut them into strips. It's better to do it this way because if we would try to die cut them and adhere them to 2 acetate strips, for example, when we would pull on the slider panel, the ghosts would slide out perfectly, but that zigzaggy edge would catch on their way back. For a different look, you could stamp the ghosts on heavyweight vellum or even on acetate. I added some purple shading to mine so that they would look kind of translucent. And for a neat finish, I'm adding some black marker to the edges of the stamped image, not the rest of the strip. I did the exact same thing with the second ghost. I forgot to turn on my camera when I was cutting a slit in the main panel, but I'll just go through it again so that you know what to do. I drew a line 2 3/4 of an inch from the lower edge, then I grabbed a craft knife and started my cut 1/2 inch from the left edge to end it 1/2 inch from the right one. Later we'll adhere the ghosts through this slit to our sliding cellophane. Okay, let's move on. I cut my grass panel off camera and it measures 4.5 by 3 inches. I used one of the dies from the slimline Grassy Hills Dynamics to give it that nice edge, and now I'm ink blending it with 4 tones of Distress Oxide inks: Peeled Paint, Evergreen Bough, Bundled Sage, and Faded Jeans. I'm also splattering water on this grass panel for that nice bleach effect. That way our card will look more cohesive. Even though this looks like a card base, it's actually my slider panel. It measures 8 by 6 inches and I scored it at 4. I already heat embossed the word pull from the interactive label stamp set on it, and now I'm applying glue to one side to adhere the two sides together to make it really sturdy. Optionally, you can round the corners of it to make it look a little neater, but it isn't really necessary. Working with black cardstock on a black background made my camera go crazy, so I switched to a lighter one. Here are our main elements, and we can now start assembling the card. I'm adhering my slider panel to the back of the secondary panel with 1/2 inch score tape, about 1/4 of an inch from the upper edge. It doesn't work very well yet, but we can still see that the cellophane moves correctly. Okay, now we're going to adhere the ghost to the front of the cellophane, and then we're going to hide the mechanism with our grass panel and tombstones. I've already added some 1/4 inch score tape to the ghost strips, and now I'm adhering them to the edge of the cellophane. We can now slide those ghost heads through the slit of the main panel. Let's quickly check if they will be correctly hidden before moving on. Everything looks good, so we can get rid of the backing of the foam tape and adhere the left side of the panel to the secondary panel. There we go, slowly. Okay, now let's do the same with the right side, lining up the two panels perfectly. I've partially peeled off the foam tape release paper from two opposite corners, and I won't press down until my panel is centered on the card base. Okay, this is looking good. Now I can pull on the release paper to finish adhering it. Let's test it again before moving on. This looks good. To attach my grass panel to the main panel, instead of foam adhesive, I decided to use a little piece of black fun foam with score tape on both sides. I was going to adhere it to the back of the grass panel, but it's better to do it this way. I used thin foam adhesive for the tombstones, but only applied them to the lower halves. And as always, before moving on to the next step, we need to check that the mechanism is still working. And here I'm adding the final touches. The fun jack-o'-lantern is also from the Ghostly Greeting set, while the leaves are from Stacy Jacula's Pile of Fun stamp set. I color them with Copic markers and used a ballpoint stylus to shape them. I added a small shadow under each of the elements with a light green marker, G12 to be precise. I also added some spooky die-cut trees from the Haunted House set in steel grey cardstock backed with score tape. And that's it, our double slider Halloween card is ready. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. As always, all of the necessary information is in the description box. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll gladly help. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time. Bye bye.